This is our presentation on natural selection in Galapagos finches by Mateo Andrade.
And Myles O. Yeah. So, the introduction to natural selection. Natural selection is a mechanism of evolution where individuals with advantageous traits survive and reproduce more successfully. And the requirements are variation, differences in traits, heritability, genetic basis of traits, differential survival, and reproduction, which leads to changes in allele frequencies over time.
Now let's get to the topic of our presentation, the Galapagos finches, or by the common name, Darwin's finches. These belong to the scientific group Geospiza spp. There are around 15 different species that all evolved from a single ancestral species that arrived to the Galapagos Islands millions of years ago. The Galapagos finches are a great example of adaptive radiation, as each species evolved different traits to fill different ecological roles, as seen by the different beaks in the different finches shown on screen.
Okay, and the habitat and geographic location. So they're found on the Galapagos Islands, a group of isolated volcanic islands. And the key research location is Daphne Major. And the environment characteristics are a dry climate with irregular rainfall, frequent drought cycles, and the isolation limits stream flow, allowing populations to evolve independently.
Like previously mentioned, the different species of Galapagos finches evolved to occupy unique ecological niches by their different structures through evolution. The most prominent of these structures is the beak. This specialization of like things like their beak, feathers, whatever, helps to reduce competition between different species of finches and increases the survival of the species. Um, Going back to the beak example, smaller beaks are more efficient at eating small, soft seeds, while larger beaks are specialized for cracking large and hard seeds.
Okay, and the scientific background Darwin plus grants. So Charles Darwin observed finches in 1835 and proposed that species change over time. In the long-term research, who's conducted by Peter Grant and Rosemary Grant, they conducted a longitudinal study, um, which is decades long, of tracking, and they tracked individual birds' beak measurements and survival rates. And their work shows that environmental changes directly affected which traits were favored, which shows evidence of natural selection.
Now, this brings us to the drought of 1977. So around this time, the Galapagos Islands were at a severe lack of rainfall. And this severely or drastically reduced plant growth within the area. This meant that there were less small, soft seeds that most Galapagos finches fed on. And what was remaining were larger and harder seeds. The drought created a directional selection pressure favoring birds that could access the remaining large and hard seeds. So, this environmental change acted as the driving force for selection within the population of finches.
Hmm. Okay, and the adaptation and heritable variation. So, they showed genetic variation in beak size and depth, and the beak traits are controlled by the gene expression, the BMP4 protein. So, birds with larger and deeper beaks could crack hard seeds easier and had a higher survival advantage. And the trait is heritable, so it could be passed to offspring. So, this essentially is the raw material for natural selection.
So, what happened as a result of the drought? Um, Many of the small beaked finches died off because they couldn't or they didn't have the capability to feed on these larger, harder seeds that were so much more prominent during this time. And like in contrast, the finches with larger beaks were able to thrive in this environment, and they were able to survive and reproduce and pass on the trait to the next generation, as shown by the average beak depth increasing from 9.2 millimeters to 9.8 millimeters. This
Mhm.
demonstrates differential survival and reproduction.
Okay, and the evolution of the population. So the LLs for larger beaks became more common as survivors reproduced, and which caused a shift in the allele frequency. And the population evolved in just one generation, so this is evidence of microevolution. And this demonstrates that natural selection acts on variation, and that environmental pressures drive evolution. And these are resources. Thank you.
Thank you.